Yo, how's everyone doing today? It's Lucas and Christian. This is the At the Buzzer NBA Draft Show. Today we're going to be talking about the Duke Blue Devils prospects, mostly Kyle Filipowski, Jared McCain, and Tyrese Proctor. A lot of the other guys are probably going to be returning for another year or transferring. Obviously, we don't really know what the word is for all of these guys, but Tyrese Proctor, I hope that he returns, but we'll get into that a little bit more once we talk about him. Starting things off, obviously, the other day they lost to NC State to end their season. It was a rough one to watch. DJ Burns was doing whatever he wanted to Kyle Filipowski, and McCain was the only one that could kind of get things going. But even then, his shooting splits were not the greatest on the night. So with their season being over, we figured it was a good time to talk about them. So we'll dive right into things with Jared McCain. He is a guard, obviously about 6'2", 195 pounds. I think he's listed at 6'3". He's a tad older for a freshman, but he's a real deal shooter. He's up to top 20 on my board. I know that you've been higher on him the whole cycle. He's a little undersized, but he is a high IQ guard. He doesn't need the ball in his hands. He's a great spot up shooter. You can run some off ball actions for him. Defenses have to stay attached to him because, like I said, he's a real deal shooter. He shot 42% on catch and shoot 3-point attempts this year and 37% on off the dribble 3-point attempts. When he's played off the line, he's able to take a dribble or two to get into the mid range for a pull up where he shoots effectively and efficiently as well. He is able to use a little bit of his strength and pace to get deeper into the paint than you'd expect when he's played off the line. He's not a great driver by any means, but definitely a better finisher and has a better ability to get into the paint than you'd expect from someone his size, especially not being a phenomenal athlete. The clear sell with Jared McCain, of course, is that he's a high level shooter. He can let it fly in a variety of ways. He's got good feel, and he's a surprisingly good positional rebounder, despite only being about 6'2" or 6'3", at about a 15% defensive rebounding percentage, which is pretty damn good for someone his size. So, before I break stuff down a little bit more, what are your thoughts on Jared McCain?
Yeah, McCain was a guy I paid close attention to with his high school film preseason. The range stood out to me for a high schooler. Like you said, he's a little bit older for his age, but the shooting popped in his film. I want to say I think he won a Peach Jam championship as well, with Team Why Not. But yeah, I just thought watching his high school stuff, especially, you see he's 6'2", 6'3", but he definitely plays bigger than that, and it showed a lot at points this year. Definitely an impressive freshman season, and I think in this draft class that lacks a lot of star power, I would say somebody with his skill set where he could play off the ball, and I think there's room for him to grow into an on-ball type of player. Um, I think that's pretty intriguing.
For sure, yeah. So I was talking about his driving a little bit, and as a driver, like I said, he definitely lacks the size or the athleticism that you'd want. But and his free throw rate is low at about 23, but he does shoot about 60% at the rim, which is pretty impressive for his size. Like I said, when he's played off the line, he can pull up for a mid range or use his pace and some of his strength to attack. He keeps it simple. He doesn't over dribble. He doesn't waste his dribbles. He gets to his spots. He's got some counters. He's got a pretty nice spin move at times, and he'll use his offhand in the mid range to help himself create space for pull ups. Utilizes pump fakes on the perimeter. Like like I said, with some of the athleticism and size concerns with him as a driver, the driving might not be as often or effective against NBA size, length, strength, but it's been a nice thing to see at Duke. And if he's shooting the lights out, then obviously defenses have to stay attached to him. And he's obviously shown the capability to be able to do something when played off the line, which is obviously nice to see from someone his size, and of course something you want to see from any great shooter.
Definitely.
So, getting on to a little bit more about his offense, he only averaged about 1.8 assists per game this year, and his assist percentage was at about 10.7, which isn't great for a guard, but he makes good decisions. He's got a positive assist to turnover ratio, and he's definitely more than capable of making simple reads, although the assist percentage and assist per game isn't anything that wows you or jumps off the page. He's an effective pick and roll operator. He doesn't turn the ball over much. He keeps the game simple. He does what he does well. He's not going to be a primary playmaker anywhere, but he definitely he's a capable passer for sure. Even though the numbers might not indicate that the greatest. I know you like him as a passer. I dig him as a passer. He's not going to do anything too crazy, nothing that's going to make you jump out of your seat, but he gets the job done. And like I said, an effective pick and roll operator.
Yeah, especially playing in that Duke lineup, a lot of playmakers. It's kind of tough to find your way if you're a true point guard there. I mean, you could argue they didn't really. I think Proctor is more of a true point guard than Roach or Foster or McCain, but a lot of those guys, undersized guards, and they're all on the floor at the same time.
For
And I
sure.
think something with McCain, a lot of these guys come in, they're McDonald's All-Americans. They're not, there's definitely an adjustment period with them playing off the ball, where as when he's in high school, he was more so on the ball.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I mean, he thrived in that role, so I think that's something that's pretty noteworthy as well.
For sure, yeah. I'm gonna try to check something really quickly if this can load. But while that loads, I can talk a little bit about his defense. Defensively, like I said, with when it comes to driving as well, he obviously has size and some athletic and physical limitations defensively, and he doesn't really generate many steals or blocks. Don't expect him to get blocks, obviously, but if he's surrounded with good defenders, I think it'll be fine. He tries. I'm definitely not going to be primarily matching him up at the point of attack or on the other team's like lead ball handler by any means, but he tries. Although there are some defensive question marks because of the physical and athletic limitations, he isn't a slouch on that end. You're drafting him for his offense anyways and his shooting. There might be sometimes that he gets attacked on defense, but I don't really know how often that'll be. But if that's the case, you can get him out of the game. I don't think he's going to be a guy playing 33 minutes a night for a team, and if anything gets exploited, he can very easily just get subbed out of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think that the shooting and all the offensive stuff that we like, though, of course, will find him a spot. What I was looking for is, yeah, his usage rate was only 19.7, so it was under 20. So obviously, like you were pointing out with all those Duke guards, obviously the assist per game number isn't going to be super high when they're kind of all splitting duties, all kind of
Right.
doing their own thing. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about Jared McCain before we looked at some team fits or moved on to the next player?
Just that as a shooter, I think he brings versatility. He's not just hitting wide open catch and shoots. He could shoot off the dribble a little bit. I think he'll have a solid pull-up game. And I think as he matures in NBA spacing, I think uh that'll open up opportunities for him as an offensive player. A chance to get to the free throw line where he shot almost just under 90% this year. So I just think as an offensive player in this draft, he's someone that's flying under the radar still.
For sure, yeah. Definitely been getting some more credit recently, some more kind of been flying up boards recently. I know you've had him top 20 lottery range all year, so the last thing that I really had to say about Jared McCain is that he always seems engaged. He seems coachable. It seems like he loves the game and he's willing to do whatever it takes to continue getting better. So those are all things that you like to see from a prospect, of course. I believe that he will be, like I said, he's a little older for a freshman, so he will be 20 on draft night, but that's nothing too crazy, especially not in a draft
He's
like
20
this.
right now, I think.
Yeah, because it says he'll be 20.3 when the draft comes
Yeah.
around. So, some team fits that I like for him are, I mean, he's a shooter. He could fit in a good amount of spots. He's a selfless, high level shooter, makes the right reads, plays the game the right way. I like the Philadelphia 76ers or the Miami Heat or even the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a few other teams I have, you said Miami already. I think San Antonio would be another solid spot for him. I want to say San Antonio has two picks this year, right?
They have the Toronto pick if it's not top six, and right now
Okay.
it's sitting at the sixth odds. So
Okay. So that's another potential spot, I think. I also think Minnesota would be interesting. I'm
yeah,
not really
I
sure
thought
the
about
name of.
Minnesota as well.
Yeah, I think he could. he could play for them, be a shooter. Everybody, you could always use shooting. And they
Definitely.
still don't really have that franchise point guard. Mike Conley's been good for them, but if they can get a younger guard in there and Mike Conley could kind of uh, mentor him and kind of bring him along.
For sure.
And then also another one, not really sure if they have their pick or what, because all this stuff is always kind of changing.
Hmm.
But the Phoenix Suns, I think, would also be another
Yeah,
interesting.
they have their pick. Um,
I like that fit for even though it's an older team, have a shooter. He'd give him good minutes off the bench, I think, as a guard.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely going to open the court up for his teammates. Like we said, does a lot offensively that we really like. So,
Yeah.
moving on to Kyle Filipowski, he is a 7 foot, about 250 pound big man. He's a little bit of a tweener between the power forward and the center of the NBA level. I'm not sure if he's big enough or long enough to guard fives or excel against fives on the other end. Kind of struggles with some physicality. I'm not sure if he's quick enough to guard fours or good enough of a floor spacer to be a four offensively. So with him, I probably would lean a little bit more center at the NBA level, expecting him to be a screen man that can roll or pose the threat to pop. Although I do think the shot is a little bit more theoretical than in actuality as of right now. The percentage did go up this year, and he's shooting about 36% on catch and shoot attempts, which is obviously a fine indicator, but the percentages are too up and down on a month to month basis for me to completely buy it. And the free throw percentage also dipped down to 67% this year, which is obviously noteworthy. I do think he has potential as a shooter, and I definitely think he will be able to space the floor, at least bare minimum, but I'm just not sure if he's going to be like a serious pop threat where it's like defenses have to get out on him.
Yeah, he might be one of those guys where, if he's in a playoff setting, a team's gonna live with him shooting
Mm-hmm.
those, I mean, he might have a game where he hits five, but kind of like Grant Williams almost, where, he improved a lot as a shooter in the league, but once when it comes down to it, teams are gonna live with it kind of thing.
For sure, yeah. So getting on to the next part of his game, he's improved as a defender this year, and he's been a better shot blocker. His block percentage is about 5%, which is nice, but he has a reported negative wingspan. I'm not 100% sure if that's true or not, but that's what I saw. That's worrisome, especially, like I said, against NBA size. He's kind of struggled. He's struggled with NBA sized centers, bigger centers, NBA length, the physicality. It's kind of all thrown him off. I think back to the Misi game against Baylor. That was a rough time for Kyle Filipowski, and obviously DJ Burns isn't like an NBA type athlete or NBA whatever, but obviously he's got the size, and he was frying Kyle Filipowski the other day. So
Yeah, definitely. He puts up the numbers on defense. He was a steal and a block this year, a block and a half, I think, around that. Last year, I think just a little bit under a block and a steal. But another part of his game, I think, is as a passer, he's shown moments, but I still think that's more theoretical at this point and something you hope he can grow into. Still a lot of careless turnovers, really, but um, I think also some of those turnovers might just be because he's used so much at Duke, and
mm-hmm.
then I think whatever NBA team he goes to, he will not be featured nearly as much. It
Yeah.
seems, Duke starts out the possession, he sets a ball screen, then he rolls, then he posts, and they're looking for him the whole time. So I didn't really think that was Duke's best way of playing, but they seem to like that the last 2 years. So I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing I wanted to say about his defense is that the improvements have been nice, but I don't really buy it to a high extent on that end. But like you were talking about the passing, that was the next thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, he's a pretty good positional passer, 18%. Or 18.4 assist percentage, which is good for a big man. He's just under 3 assists per game. He's got a positive assist to turnover ratio, and I dig him in like short roll situations. And he's a pretty quick processor as a passer, but like you said, some careless turnovers.
Right.
He can make a nice read from the elbow, but continuing with his offense a little bit more so back to the scoring aspect. like I said, I can dig him as a screen man, whether that's rolling or popping. I do want to see him make a little bit more contact on his screens. And at Duke, the number one like type of play that he ran was like, the post up, and he posted up a lot at Duke. It's not really going to be the case in the league. Like he'll get some like post touches, of course, but it won't be the same. He's got he's got some solid footwork. He's got some strength, but I don't really think that he has what it takes to be a truly dominant post or mid post scorer in the league to where a team is going to feed him like how Duke was trying to, of course. He's struggled against NBA size and physicality, like we said before. And I just don't really like the way he carries himself on the court either. I'm not going to go too in depth on that because I don't really love talking about that with prospects since we don't know them personally, but the body language is poor, and that's obviously noteworthy at least.
Yeah, there's definitely moments where it seems like he might have kind of checked out or, you
Hmm.
know, he's kind of lets his team down a little bit. I do think he plays hard and he
Yeah, he's hard
shows
nosed. Yeah,
yeah, he shows a toughness to him, but then there's times where I think he lets some stuff get the best of him
for
that
sure. Yeah.
it shouldn't matter for
Hmm.
somebody of his quality. He's a pretty decorated college player for playing
Definitely.
only 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. On Mo Wagner, Zach Collins, Kelly Olynyk, those are kind of players in the mold I could see him being. Obviously, he could be better, could be worse. Those are just names or comparisons that I've seen thrown around that I can dig.
How
Um,
about Bobby Portis?
I think Bobby Portis is. I trust Bobby Portis as a shooter
Yeah.
for sure. And Flip, I'm questionable on it, but the some of the team fits that I do like though are speaking of Bobby Portis. I actually wouldn't mind him in Milwaukee because obviously some of the defensive concerns that you have with him, if he's on the court with Giannis can cover some of those up. He can obviously, hopefully, space the floor a little bit. With Brook Lopez getting older, I'm not necessarily saying that Kyle Filipowski would step into the starting spot by any means, but give it a few years. If he progresses right, if your development staff and everything has got his jump shot going, he's blocking shots at least on defense. I think that he could definitely be a guy on Milwaukee that could pair well with Giannis as a floor spacing big man that can block shots while Giannis kind of plays more of a roamer like defensive scheme. Another team that I could dig is the Phoenix Suns or the New Orleans Pelicans. I but with those I do kind of think, especially with the Pelicans, the shot would probably need to come around to the point where I trust it more. Because like we said, he's definitely shown flashes, definitely shown upside as a shooter. Last year his free throw percentage was higher, his 3 point percentage is up this year. He shot really well from three in January. I believe it was about 45% if I'm not wrong in 8 games that he played in January. So like that's nice to see. But like I said, on a month to month basis, it's too up and down, so I don't
Right.
really know what to take from it. But if the shot is real, New Orleans could be a spot that I could get with
It's
as
tough
well.
to tell too with these bigs because, a lot of his comparisons, a lot of those guys weren't shooting a whole lot of threes,
Definitely, yeah, 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 yeah.
Like Zach Collins was looking at it right now. He shot under a three a game, but he shot
Hmm.
it at like 48%.
Okay.
Bobby Portis he was under a three per game in 2 years at Arkansas. But he did not really shoot a high percentage. It's
Uh huh.
just one of those things that's hard to predict, but he's shot a pretty good amount of them the last 2 years, about three a game. So
He's a confident shooter for sure. He'll let him go.
I think a lot of it might just be, some fine tuning. And I think a spot like New
Definitely,
Orleans they've helped guys really improve their jump shots. I think sometimes he gets the ball caught on his palm a little bit too long, so then he misses short or flat. Some of his misses are bad back iron. But I think if he could kind of straighten that out, he's shown moments of some nice touch, but
for sure.
as a free throw shooter this year, it was a little surprising that he took so much of a dip.
Definitely, yeah. So, was there anything else that you had to say about Kyle Filipowski before we move on, or you think we covered that
I
well?
just overall, I would say I like him a lot as a rebounder,
Yes,
whether
good
it be
call. Good call.
offensively or defensively. He kept in the tournament games, he kept a lot of possessions alive, back taps, and I think a lot of that is just his toughness on that side.
That's a good call.
But yeah, I think a lot of it is just going to be him getting in the right spot. He's a guy that I think could definitely have good workouts and impress teams. I think he'll play with an edge in those kind of workouts, whether he's playing 2-on-2 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, if he shoots well in those, I mean, it seems like people put a lot of stock into shooting workouts. I'm not really sure exactly if that like why necessarily because it seems like people put way too much value in that, but I
For
don't know.
sure. Yeah, and we both aren't the highest on Kyle Filipowski, but obviously we see the avenue for him. The idea
Yeah.
of him is amazing. If the shot comes around, if
Well, one
if
more
he's blocking
thing.
shots, he's going to be a pretty damn good role player like that. Some people see him could be like a light Lowry Markkanen. I don't necessarily see that, but
Yeah. I think another underrated part to his game is he's pretty he's pretty solid catching on the perimeter and attacking the
yes, yes,
rim.
he's got a pretty good handle for his size.
Yeah.
He can put the
And it's
ball
just
on the
he's just
deck for
kind of
sure.
weird. Like I like that part of his game much more
Yes,
than
that's a good
shooting
call.
right now. So that's going to be interesting to see. Um, if he forces long closeouts in the NBA, that's going to be tough because you got a seven
Mm-hmm.
footer, full head of steam. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things go for him.
No, yeah, he definitely has the potential. I don't think either of us are doubting that. He just kind of has to put a few things together, like you've been saying, kind of fine tune some of the stuff. And
Yeah.
I think that he probably has to go to the right situation for that. So the next guy that we wanted to talk about was Tyrese Proctor. We were both pretty high on Tyrese Proctor coming into the season. He's a 6'5" sophomore guard. He can operate the pick and roll well. He can create his own shot in the mid range. He's got some great wiggle and flexibility, and he looked super impressive in everything that Duke was putting out over the summer. Of course, they're not really going to put stuff out that like puts their guys in a bad light or anything, but in the scrimmages, he was standing out more than anyone else, and he definitely had an underwhelming season this year. He was only up about 1 point per game compared to last year, finishing at about 10.5 points per game and 3.7 assists per game this year. He was a bit more efficient from the field this year compared to last year, but still pretty inefficient overall. The shot didn't fall as much from beyond the arc as we thought that it could have this season, and the free throw percentage dipped by 12% from 87% last year to 75% this year, which is obviously a tad concerning because the high free throw percentage was a great indicator future shooting wise last year, at least we thought. The next step that we saw him potentially taking, it just didn't happen this year, and long story short, I'd really just like to see him return to Duke next season, and that's that's really what I want to see. I really think that'd be the best idea for him personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think, he was one of the guys that I was really high on coming back. I thought he potentially could go top five. I thought he'd take a leap as a scorer. Thought the shooting would be a little bit better, but like you said, it just kind of didn't work out that way. Um, he's another one where him and Flip took pretty significant dips in their free throw percentage.
Mm-hmm.
12%. And something we were talking about earlier that's pretty alarming is as a guard, we're expecting him to take this leap, but he wasn't able to get to the free throw line.
Yeah.
And in order to be a solid scorer, you got to be able to get to the free throw line, get yourself some easy shots. No one's guarding you. And for him, he's shot two free throws a game about last year, 87%. This year, about one and a half at 75. So that's definitely something putting pressure on the rim. He wasn't really able to do that this year.
Yeah, not at all. He doesn't have ideal strength or athleticism. Like you said, doesn't put much pressure on the rim at all. He can create some space on the perimeter and in the mid range, which is nice to see, but he's definitely too jump shot reliant. Definitely, at times, I kind of wanted to see him be a little bit more aggressive, kind of try to take a game over more. Definitely far too passive compared to what I would have liked to see. Like you were talking about, doesn't get to the free throw line. The free throw rate is at about 17, which is one of the that's the worst I've seen from a guard that's like a draft prospect that I've checked this year. Obviously, I don't look at everyone's advanced stats until I'm doing a deep dive on them, but that's the lowest I've seen. Defensively, he doesn't generate many blocks or steals. He's got fine positional size, which is, or like positional height, I guess, but he's not really a great positional rebounder. Like I said, pretty passive. He isn't super physical. And it sounds like a lot of hating right now, but I still am a fan long term. I like we said, we liked him a lot coming into the year, like super high expectations for him. You had him around your top five. I know I
Yeah.
had him in my top 10 as well. Um, I really hope that he just returns to Duke for one more year. There were a lot of good guards on the roster this year. The context was kind of weird for him. He had an injury early on, and right when he got injured, Jared McCain picked it up, and then it was kind of hard to get the ball out of his hands at that point, rightfully so, because Jared McCain was going insane, and obviously Jeremy Roach was going to get his touches. Um, this season was just a little too much up and down. There were far too many games where Proctor only finished with like 2 points or 4 points on poor shooting, and he just really couldn't catch a flow, it felt like, or get in a good rhythm. Coming back to play alongside Cooper Flagg and all the rest of the highly touted incoming class next year, I think would be awesome for him as the potential lead guard alongside all of those guys. All the eyes are going to be on Duke next year with Cooper Flagg and Maluach and Darren Harris and Isaiah Evans and everyone that's coming in. So if Tyrese Proctor came back, he could kind of be a lead guard for them. Yeah, they could. I think that Proctor could definitely improve his draft stock because right now I think that if he came back, had a successful season next year, they make a good tournament run. I see no reason why he couldn't be a first rounder next year, and I think if he came in the draft this year, he would. I'm 95% sure he'd be a second rounder unless a team late first loved him. Super, definitely, like if he impressed in workouts. I do think that in the second round range, some teams, if he were to declare this year, that I wouldn't hate are the Toronto Raptors, the Indiana Pacers, the Minnesota Timberwolves, or the 76ers. But like I said, I don't really love any spots for him based off what he showed this year. If he gets drafted at 45, he's not going to get much of an opportunity, not really going to get a chance to prove himself. It's going to be more of an uphill battle than it will be if he returns to Duke for one more year, takes the strides that he needs to, and is a potential first round pick next year.
Yeah, a positive for him is his assist to turnover is really
For
solid.
sure. I know he has a good
Uh,
assist percentage as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah, assist percentage as well. So those are two good indicators. Just like you said, still a guy that we see a future for, but
mm-hmm,
definitely after I was starting to really like him when he was getting his rhythm last year towards the
mm-hmm,
end of the year. It looked like he was really going to become a star after that Tennessee game. He was keeping Duke in that and was making tough shots, making plays. And a big part of his game was his passing
mm-hmm,
coming into Duke. I thought that made him a top level prospect in my eyes. Um, and this is also he's still pretty young. This
mm-hmm,
should have been his, like for his actual freshman season, if you want to look at it that way.
mm-hmm,
But like you said, the lack of athleticism is a little concerning, and the lack of aggressiveness. He's shown that he has some craft, but it hasn't really quite translated to scoring output really.
mm-hmm,
So that's something, I don't even know, maybe he'd be a better fit for him as a prospect at another college. I don't
mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
maybe. But I still think, I mean, he probably goes back to Duke,
Mm-hmm.
maybe test the waters. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you put it really well. Like you touched on the athleticism, the passiveness, and what we see with him and what the concerns are. I think you put that really well. Um, that's about it that I really have to say about all of these Duke guys. Obviously, next year's Duke class is going to be super fun to scout, and if Proctor returns, that makes it an even more fun team to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that you're looking at potentially six, seven names that could be
In the
drafted in
mix
those
for
first
sure.
two rounds, or if not drafted, some priority free agents right after the draft.
Definitely, yeah. I guess the last question that I'm going to ask before we wrap things up is based off of, or if you were thinking about the three guys that we just talked about, Jared McCain, Kyle Filipowski, and Tyrese Proctor, how would you rank them? Like, how are they ranked on your board right now?
As of right now,
Mm-hmm.
I would have McCain one,
Okay,
and then I would have Flip two and Proctor three for right now.
for sure. Yeah. I I agree with that. That's exactly how I have it. I had Filipowski higher than McCain before I started to do the deep dive for this. But the more I watched McCain, the more I liked his game, bumped him up, and he
I
is
value guards
higher
more
now.
so I'm a little biased.
For sure. It's close on my board. Like, I think there's only one player in between them, but I have them both right in the top 20 range.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Proctor is third on my list as well, though, although he was the highest for both of us coming into the year, but that's what
Yeah.
happens. So, um, I'd like to thank you guys all for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new here. Please share the video, drop a like, comment your thoughts. Let us know what you think about the Duke prospects. We watched a lot of Duke this year. It was nice to break down these guys' games for you guys. Follow us on Twitter. Follow the @thebuzzer Instagram account. All of this stuff will be in the bio. Just make sure you check it out. We would really appreciate it. And we're active on Twitter the most, so that's definitely where you should keep up with us. Go follow us. And thank you all for watching, and everybody have a good rest of your day. Peace out.